about the business of sports as well as, do you think that's a positive impact on the game, or what's your take on college athletes getting paid?
Yeah, it's complicated. I think that athletes sharing in the amazing revenues of the sport is long overdue. I have no problem with that. Like most well-meaning reforms, though, it's the unintended consequences that are the problem. And NIL has lots of unintended consequences. The transfer portal does too. You combine those two, and as you guys know, you have a brand new landscape for the sport. It's very problematic to a lot of people. And for a lot of people might erode, for them at least, what was some of the joy of the sport, rooting for the front of the jersey, the traditions. And clearly, athletes of this generation, I have done a lot of thought, and I've asked much smarter people about this than me to unravel the psychology of the Gen Z athlete to help me gain a better understanding of it. And when they explain modern times to me and the landscape these athletes grew up in, it's far easier to understand why rosters are so fluid, why these athletes, for a lot of older people, lack resilience and loyalty and team spirit, and they're too damn selfish and they're not tough enough. All those labels get thrown out, I think, very unfairly, because for a lot of these young athletes, they've been recruited to showcase their skills in AAU, in youth football. Certainly, they bounced around to different high schools. I'm going to go over here because this offense suits my skill set and will get me a scholarship. And they did it in AAU basketball. You might live in this part of town and play way over there because that's the best chance to get noticed and get a scholarship. So that kind of transactional decision making is not new to this generation. And there's plenty of team loyalty, and they'll fight hard to win a championship, but they also want to be shown by the coaches that the same loyalty goes both ways. And when coaches are up and bolt, because they have a better financial opportunity, you can't expect players to not want to do the same. I do think this, though, as problematic as a lot of this stuff is, we're going to have to get used to buying players, because until they get some NIL tweaks or provisions in place, it is the Wild West. And in the Wild West, there's no sheriff in town, right? It's just like chaos.
It's almost uncapped salary caps for college sports in a way.
Yeah, except some of these schools have no salary cap. What happens? That's really the problem in college football right now, is that there's less parity in college football in any sport except maybe Formula One racing, which I'm also a fan. But it's almost like F1. If you watch a race, there's like 4 cars that can win. There's basically 2 teams that are competing at the top, Red Bull and Ferrari. If you're not in one of those cars, you're going to have a hell of a hard time winning. In college football, you're not in the top 5 or 6 schools. In terms of resources committed, it's really hard to win a championship. And that's a problem. That's a problem when college football is competing against the NFL, where teams go from worst to first in a division routinely now. It happens every year because the schedules are set up that way. The draft is set up to be, as you guys know, it's got a socialist system, right? To each according to their need. Well, college football is just like more money for the richest programs. And they will find a way to make NIL work for them, the portal work for them. And that just increases the gap between the ultra rich and everybody else. And that's a problem. God, I hate that aspect of the sport, but there's not much I can do about it. When it's all said and done, this is a really long answer, but it covers some different bases. What happens on the field is still a blast. So all that stuff, how the rosters got built, where this guy came from, what his NIL deal does, is irrelevant to me once they kick it off when I get to describe the action, because then college football to me is as great as it ever was.